If I'd gone to my mother's house the day before she died, instead of waiting until after the funeral, I would have seen the jewelry armoire wide open and untouched. I would have seen her sapphire ring on the velvet tray instead of the auction listing I found 3 months later under Retirement Projects 22. My father's hands, arranging the pieces she left me, before he decided I wouldn't notice they were gone. That is the thought I still use to punish myself when I can't sleep. The morning after the burglary, I parked behind a patrol car that was already leaving my childhood driveway. Yellow tape hung crookedly from the brass knocker to the porch rail, fluttering in the April wind like somebody had given up halfway through warning us. My father opened the door before I knocked. He wore the green cardigan my mother had bought him for their 40th anniversary, the one he said made him look like a retired geography teacher, which was funny because he had been one. His gray hair was flattened on one side. His hands shook when he reached for me. "Nina," he said. I hugged him hard enough to feel the bones in his shoulders. For 1 second, the smell of him, coffee, wool, cedar blocks, made me 6 years old again, standing on his shoes while he waltzed me around the kitchen. Then I looked past him. The house was wrong. Not destroyed, selective. The walnut table by the stairs was tipped over, but the framed photo on it had been placed face down, not broken. 2 sofa cushions lay on the floor. The drawer where my mother kept coupons was open, its contents fanned out like confetti. Whoever had done it had made a mess, but not the kind a person makes when they're in a hurry and scared. "They went upstairs," Dad said. I didn't ask who they were. Not yet. I had spent the drive over imagining men in ski masks and my father alone in the hallway. My daughter Sam's college acceptance letter was still on the passenger seat beside my purse, half covered by financial aid forms I had been pretending didn't scare me. Dad had called at 8:52 the night before, breathless and thin. "Someone broke in," he'd said. "Your mother's things." Now I stood in my parents' bedroom, and my mouth went dry. My mother's robe still hung on the closet hook. Her reading glasses were on the nightstand beside a paperback with a receipt tucked in as a bookmark. But the top drawer of her dresser had been dumped on the floor. Scarves, tissue paper, birthday cards. The cherrywood jewelry armoire stood open against the wall. My mother called it the unreasonable furniture because she'd bought it at an estate sale after promising Dad she was only going to look. When I was little, she let me open one drawer at a time while she told me stories. The garnet earring she wore when Dad proposed. The silver bracelet from Aunt Celia, who smelled like roses and menthol cigarettes. The sapphire cocktail ring my grandmother gave her after I was born because, as Grandma supposedly said, "You survived a colicky baby. You deserve something blue." The velvet trays were empty. Not disturbed, empty. "What did they take?" I asked. Dad sat on the edge of the bed as if his knees had stopped working. "I don't know. The police asked me, and I couldn't remember everything." I stepped closer. The armoire lock was built into the right door, a little oval brass plate with a keyhole no bigger than a grain of rice. It had always been fussy. Mom kept the key on a faded ribbon in her sewing basket because she said a thief would never think to look under the buttons. The brass plate was clean. No scratches, no bent metal, no splintered wood. "Did Mom keep it locked?" I asked. Dad rubbed both hands over his face. "Sometimes. I don't know, Nina. I wasn't exactly checking inventory." There was a bite in his voice, and shame right behind it. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean that." "It's okay." It wasn't, but he looked one more question away from collapsing. I picked up my mother's blue silk scarf, the one with tiny white cranes, because my hands needed a job. Behind us, a woman called from downstairs. "Robert, I'm going to make fresh coffee." Marlene. My father's new wife of 11 months. New was unfair. They had met in the church bereavement group after Mom died, and they married faster than I was ready to forgive. She was not cruel to me. That almost made it harder. She remembered Sam's nut allergy. She sent birthday cards. She called my father Rob, which made my skin tighten because nobody had ever called him that in this house. "I'll make tea," I told Dad. "You sit." In the kitchen, Marlene was wiping an already clean counter with one of my mother's yellow dishcloths. She had a neat silver bob and the careful cheer of a person who believed discomfort could be managed with lemon slices. "Oh, honey," she said, "I'm so sorry." I nodded, because if I answered, I might say something expensive. While the kettle heated, Marlene said, "The detective said the insurance company will need photos. Robert has appraisals somewhere. Your mother was organized, thank goodness." My mother was organized. She labeled extension cords. Somewhere in this house, there was probably a folder called jewelry, with photographs, receipts, maybe the appraisal from when the sapphire ring was resized because chemo had swollen her knuckles. "Where did Dad keep Mom's paperwork after she died?" I asked. Marlene hesitated, just long enough for me to notice. "Mostly in the den," she said. "Some things in the safe deposit box, I think. Robert has the key." "No," I said automatically. "Mom kept that key." Marlene's cloth stopped moving. I could see it, a small brass safe deposit key on a red paper tag tucked in the back of the armoire's bottom drawer. My mother's handwriting, box 114/Sam papers. A chill moved through me. "Maybe he moved it," Marlene said. "Maybe." My phone buzzed. "Sam." "Did Grandpa answer? Is he okay?" Sam was 17, old enough to know when adults were lying and young enough to think the right question could make us stop. My mother had started a college fund for her when she was born. Not a grand trust. $50 here, birthday checks there, deposit slips tucked into cards with "For Samantha's future" in Mom's slanted blue ink. I typed, "He's shaken but safe. I'm here. I'll call you soon." Then my phone lit up again, not with a text, but a notification from a vintage jewelry site I had used once to replace a broken clasp on Mom's necklace. I don't know why I opened it. Avoidance, muscle memory, the need to look at anything except Marlene folding my mother's dishcloth into a perfect square. The homepage loaded slowly. At the top were newly listed items: brooches, watches, a pearl ring, a Victorian locket. And then I saw it. Blue oval sapphire, diamond chips around it like a frost halo, heavy gold setting, too dramatic for daytime, which never stopped my mother. Vintage sapphire cocktail ring, estate piece, size 7. Seller, Retirement Projects 22. My first thought was stupid. There must be many rings like that. My second thought was worse. No, there weren't. I tapped the photo. There, under the setting near the left shoulder, was a tiny crescent-shaped chip in the gold. When I was 12, I knocked the ring off Mom's dresser while trying it on without permission. It hit the radiator. I cried so hard Mom forgave me before I confessed. The listing had gone live at 11:38 p.m. Less than 3 hours after Dad called me. My body did a strange, practical thing. It got calm, not peaceful, more like all the furniture inside me bolted itself to the floor. Marlene was saying something about toast. I locked my phone and turned it face down. I need to check on Dad. In the den, Dad sat in his recliner with untouched tea beside him. "Do you know where Mom's appraisal folder is?" I asked. "Why?" "For the insurance claim." "Desk maybe, bottom drawer." The bottom drawer had always been an archaeological site. Batteries, stamps, expired coupons, my 7th grade report card for reasons known only to him. Now it held hanging folders in Marlene's block printing. Utilities, Medicare, house. One folder still had Mom's handwriting. "Sam." I slid it out without thinking. Inside were deposit slips, soft pink carbon copies, $25, $50, $100 on Sam's 10th birthday. Mom's notes ran along the memo lines: Sam college, Sam braces if needed, Sam do not let Nina spend on roof. Despite everything, I laughed once. Broken, my mother had known me too well. Beneath the slips was a copy of Sam's birth certificate, an old savings account statement, and a small envelope taped shut. Safety deposit key, if I forget where I put it. The envelope was empty. "Nina," Dad said from the doorway. I closed the folder, not fast enough. "That's not the appraisal folder," he said. "No," I said, "it isn't." For a moment, we stood there with my mother's handwriting between us. He looked old. That is not an excuse. It is only the truth. His cardigan hung loose. There was a tea stain near the cuff. He had taught me to parallel park. Sat through every fever, school concert, and bad boyfriend with saintly patience and the judgment of a county prosecutor. For most of my life, he had been the safest person I knew. So I made my first mistake. I gave him room to be innocent. "I'm going to take pictures upstairs," I said, "for the claim." His shoulders dropped. "Good, yes, thank you." Upstairs, I photographed the armoire from every angle. Clean lock, empty trays, drawer pulls without scratches. Then I checked the sewing basket. The biscuit tin still held buttons, pearl, brown plastic, one ridiculous silver anchor. No ribbon, no key. I sat on the bed and opened the auction listing again. Beautiful estate ring from longtime family collection. Original owner wore it only on special occasions. Lovely story attached, gifted after the birth of a daughter. Minor wear consistent with age. Gifted after the birth of a daughter. That was not a dealer's guess. That was our dinner table story. At that point, I still wanted an explanation shaped like panic. Maybe someone had stolen it earlier. Maybe grief had made me paranoid. People say, trust your gut, but my gut was busy trying to protect my father from my brain. So I did the smallest, deliberate thing I could do. I did not confront him. I did not call the officer whose card sat on the kitchen counter. I did not tell Sam. I created a new buyer account using my coupon email and a prepaid card I'd bought for Sam's online textbooks and never used. For the username, I chose Lake House Finds because it sounded like someone who owned linen napkins and said provenance without irony. Then I messaged the seller. "Hello, beautiful ring. Do you know anything about its history? Was it from an estate sale or family collection? I collect birthstone pieces and love a good story." It made me sound unbearable, but harmless. The reply came 42 minutes later. "Lake House Finds it belonged to a family friend. She received it when her daughter was born. Lovely woman, downsizing now. I'm helping clear a few items." I took a screenshot. That was the first receipt that felt like a receipt. The listing could be explained away if I stretched hard enough and hated myself for the effort. The message was different. It contained our story in the seller's hand. My mother had not downsized. She had died upstairs with 3 sweaters folded on a chair because she still thought she might want options. I stayed until the responding officer left. He was young enough to call Dad, "Sir," too many times, and old enough to know the back door frame looked wrong in a way that said insurance claim more than home invasion. He gave Dad a case number. Dad folded the card into his wallet without looking at me. At home, Sam made a peanut butter sandwich with the focus of a chemist. "Grandpa okay?" she asked. "Shaken up." "That means no." "It means shaken up." She looked at me over the knife. "Mom." I almost told her. Instead I said, "I don't know yet." That was my second mistake. Or maybe the last decent thing I did before the damage became communal. I wanted one more day where Sam's grandfather was still just Grandpa, the man who cut her waffles into triangles until she was 14 because he claimed squares tasted institutional. The auction ended Wednesday at 9:04 p.m. I sat on my bed with my laptop open and a cup of peppermint tea I did not drink. When the countdown hit 10 seconds, someone named Porchlight Vintage pushed the price up $30. "Absolutely not," I said to my empty room and clicked again. I won my mother's ring for $486, plus shipping. There is no graceful way to describe paying a stranger for your own inheritance. It felt like ransom with sales tax. The package arrived 4 days later in a padded mailer, return address a post office box 1 town over. Inside was a small white jewelry box wrapped in tissue paper. No note. I lifted the ring out. It was heavier than I remembered. For a minute I was 8 again, sitting on my parents' bed while Mom got ready for a wedding. She had let me hold the sapphire in both palms. "This one is yours someday," she had said, "but not until you're old enough to stop leaving sweaters on restaurant chairs." I still left sweaters on restaurant chairs. I photographed the ring under my desk lamp, front, back, side, underside. The crescent chip showed clearly. I opened old insurance photos from a cloud folder Dad must have forgotten Mom shared with me years before. There was the ring on a blue velvet pad in 2016, appraisal number along the bottom, same chip, same scratch near one prong. I made a laptop folder called Home Photos because I was not ready to type evidence. Then I typed evidence anyway. The next listing appeared 2 days later. Pearl drop earrings, described as worn at daughter's graduation. My graduation. Mom had complained all day that the folding chairs were designed by chiropractors looking for business. Then came the ruby leaf brooch, the gold charm bracelet with the tiny enamel strawberry from the year Mom tried to grow strawberries and fed most of them to squirrels. The garnet pendant Dad gave her for their 30th anniversary, listed with the line, "Husband selected while traveling for work." He had told that story so many times I could perform it. Airport layover, rain delay, tiny shop near the gate. Your mother pretended to be surprised, but she'd circled the catalog page in red. Each listing arrived after the burglary. Each had a family detail no estate dealer would know unless the estate came with a narrator. I kept a spreadsheet. I hated myself for the spreadsheet. Item, listing date, listing time, description quote, matching photo, family identifier, sales status. It looked like something for a tax audit, not the slow autopsy of my childhood. On the 6th day, Sam found me at the kitchen table with printed screenshots and a highlighter. "Are you doing taxes?" she asked. "No." "Because you look worse than taxes." I capped the highlighter. "Sit down." I told her the minimum first. The ring, the auction, the chip. Then, because the minimum was a lie wearing a polite hat, I showed her the screenshots. Sam did not cry. She got very still. That was worse. "He said someone broke in," she said. "I know." "Grandpa said that." "I know." She picked up the charm bracelet photo. "Grandma let me play with this." "She did." I thought it was ugly. It is ugly, lovingly ugly. One breath escaped her, almost a laugh. Then she pushed the page away with 2 fingers. "Why would he do that?" "I'm trying to find out." "Did you ask him?" "Not yet." "So we're spying." "We're documenting." That's a mom word for spying. It is a legally safer mom word. The joke landed nowhere. She stood so fast the chair scraped. "I need to go to Maya's." "Sam." "No, if I stay here, I'm going to call him, and if I call him, I'm going to say something I can't unsay." Her voice cracked, but her chin stayed up with my mother's furious dignity. "Send me the screenshots." "You don't have to look at them." "I'm in them," she said. I didn't understand until she pointed to the folder tab on the table. "Sam," in my mother's handwriting. "She saved for me," Sam said. "Right." "Yes." "Then I'm in it." She left with her backpack and no coat, because 17-year-olds believe weather is a personal challenge. I watched until she got into Maya's mother's Subaru. The cost of the receipts had walked out my front door with wet hair and my stubbornness. The next morning, I went to the bank. Not for the safe deposit box. That required Dad or paperwork I did not have. I went because the Sam folder contained old account numbers, and I needed to know whether I was accusing my father of one betrayal or a wholesale operation. The customer service representative was named Patris. She wore readers on a chain with little silver stars and had known my mother in the way bank employees know careful women in small towns. Not as friends, exactly, but as recurring evidence of order. "I'm listed as custodian on some of these," I said, sliding over my license and Sam's birth certificate. "At least I think I am." Patris typed for a long time. People typing in front of you, while not changing expression, should be classified as a medical test. Finally, she said, "There was a minor savings account. It converted when your daughter turned 16. Converted to what? A custodial education savings product, then closed. My mouth went dry. Closed by whom? She looked at the screen again. The professional blankness shifted half an inch toward concern. There was an address change first. Statements redirected to Maple Ridge Lane. Marlene's house. The house she still rented out after moving in with Dad because she liked to say she was keeping her independence, which I had admired until that sentence grew teeth. When? 2 years ago in April. My mother had been alive then, barely, sleeping 18 hours a day, apologizing for needing help to cross a room. I didn't authorize that, I said. Patris folded her hands. I can request copies of the forms. It may take a few days. I need them. I understand. No, I mean I really need them. Her eyes softened. I heard about your father's break-in. I'm sorry. For one reckless second, I almost told her the break-in was a stage set with bad lighting. Instead, I said, thank you. She gave me what she was allowed to give, an account history with balances blacked out in places and transaction codes she wrote beside in plain English. Address change, authorized signer update, withdrawal, cashier's check. The final closure amount was large enough that I had to look away. Mom's $25 birthday deposits had grown into something real. Not full tuition, not a miracle, but books, fees, maybe one semester without loans if Sam stayed practical, which she mostly did when pastry wasn't involved. The money had left in 3 cashier's checks, all payable to my father. I sat in the grocery store parking lot with the printout on my lap while people carried cantaloupes and toilet paper past my windshield. I wanted to scream, but at 11 in the morning, in front of the cart return, screaming felt rude. The authorization copies came 3 days later. My signature was on them. Not my signature exactly, a version of it drawn by someone who knew the first letter and lost confidence halfway through. The N was too round. The final had a loop I never used. Beside it was Dad's signature, steady and familiar. There was also a scanned driver's license image. Mine, an old one. I knew where that photocopy had been kept. In Dad's desk, in a folder labeled Nina, house, car, school. My parents had copied everything when I bought my first townhouse because Dad said adults should keep backup records. At the time, it felt like love with a stapler. The next receipt came from the bottom of Dad's house folder because I went back under the excuse of bringing soup. Marlene let me in. She had flour on her cheek and seemed genuinely tired. He's been awful, she whispered, then looked guilty. Not awful, frightened. Men his age don't like feeling helpless. No, I said. They prefer making everyone else feel that way. She blinked. Sorry, long week. Dad was upstairs napping. The desk drawer stuck like always. I found utility bills, property taxes, a reverse mortgage pamphlet with a coffee ring on it, and then a packet clipped with a blue binder clip. Small Business Administration, Borrower Information Form. My father's name, Marlene's name. A proposed purchase of Silver Steps Home Inventory and Appraisal Services, described as a franchise opportunity for retirees assisting seniors with downsizing, estate cataloging, and online resale. Retirement Projects 22 suddenly stopped sounding like a sad username and started sounding like a business plan. Attached was a personal financial statement listing assets I recognized and debts I didn't. Second mortgage, medical credit line, private oncology balance. A number so large my first reaction was disbelief, then nausea. There were copies of cashier's checks marked owner equity injection. Sam's money. Behind that was a draft letter, with initial inventory sourced from family estate items. Projected online sales will demonstrate viability prior to franchise approval. Family estate items. My mother had been reduced to inventory, in a sentence with projected and viability. I photographed every page. My hands shook so badly the first set blurred and I had to redo them. A floorboard creaked upstairs. I slid the packet back exactly as I'd found it. Dad appeared in the doorway. He looked at the soup container, then at the desk. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Looking for a pen." "There are pens in the kitchen." "Apparently." We stood there, both of us knowing the room had changed shape. "You shouldn't go through my things," he said. "No," I said, "probably not." I wanted to pull out my phone and show him everything. The ring, listings, forged signature, SBA packet. I wanted the satisfaction of watching him run out of exits. But receipts are only useful if you know what door they open. I still didn't know whether Marlene was architect, accomplice, or another person standing under a fallen ceiling. I didn't know whether Dad had filed the insurance claim. I didn't know whether confronting him there would make him confess, destroy documents, or simply become old and pitiable enough that I lost my nerve. So I held up the soup. "Chicken and rice," I said. "Low sodium because I'm a tyrant." He almost smiled, then didn't. At home, Sam was waiting on the porch steps in the dark, wearing the coat she had refused 3 days earlier. "Maya's mom says I can stay there as long as I want," she said. "Okay." "That doesn't mean I want to." "I know." Inside, I showed her the bank forms first. She touched the forged signature lightly, as if it might bruise. "He signed your name." "Yes." "For my account." "Yes." She nodded once, then she sent me something from her phone. "What's that?" I asked. "Screenshots from Grandma's old texts. She sent me pictures of the charm bracelet and the ring when she was in the hospital. She said, 'Don't let your mother sell these if the roof leaks again.'" My laugh broke in half. Sam didn't smile. "Use them. You don't have to be part of this." She looked at me with the flat contempt only a daughter can deliver to a mother being noble in the wrong direction. "I'm already part of this," she said, "but I'm not going to Grandpa's Sunday, and I don't want you telling him I know until you have to." That was her choice, not forgiveness, not performance, a boundary clean and painful. The final piece was time. Dad had texted at 8:47 the night of the burglary, back door broken. "Police coming. Don't panic, I'm okay." The sapphire listing went live at 11:38. But the pearl earrings, the first listing under that seller name, the one I had missed, had gone live at 7:12 p.m. An hour and 35 minutes before my father claimed he had discovered the break-in. I printed everything in order. Bank address change, forged authorization, withdrawals, cashier's checks, SBA packet, auction listings, Dad's text, police case number. A ladder, each rung uglier than the last. The question had changed again. It was no longer whether my father had sold the jewelry. It was whether he had staged a burglary to hide that he had already spent my daughter's money trying to buy his way out of a debt he had been too proud to admit existed. I called him the next morning. "Can you come over?" I asked. "Is Sam all right?" There it was, the knife with the familiar handle. "She's safe," I said. "Come alone." He arrived 20 minutes later in the brown jacket my mother said made him look like a retired geography teacher. He saw the papers on my kitchen table and stopped before taking off his shoes. For once, I did not give him room. "Sit down, Dad." He sat. I placed the sapphire ring between us, still in its cheap white auction box. His eyes filled before he touched it. "Oh, Nina," he said. "No, not yet." My voice sounded calmer than I felt. "First, you're going to tell me why my mother's ring was online, why Sam's college money went through a forged authorization, and why there is an SBA packet in your desk calling Mom's jewelry initial inventory." He put one hand over his mouth. For a long time, he said nothing. Outside, a neighbor's lawn crew started up because the world has terrible timing and excellent equipment. Finally, he whispered, "I thought I could put it back." That sentence was so small and ordinary that I hated him more for it than for any document. "Put what back?" "All of it. Sam's money." He flinched. "The jewelry." His shoulders collapsed. "The truth?" I asked. He looked at me then, and the man in front of me was not the father who taught me to parallel park. He was not the criminal mastermind my anger briefly needed him to be, either. He was 71, exhausted, ashamed, and still responsible. "Your mother's treatments," he said. "The ones insurance denied, the trial consults, the nurse at night when I told you I had it handled." He wiped his face. "I didn't have it handled. I had a second mortgage, 3 cards, and a loan officer telling me a small business could consolidate enough if I had equity to show. Marlene found the franchise. It sounded respectable, appraisals, inventories, helping families. I thought I could sell a few things, start it, pay Sam back before she graduated." "And the burglary." He shut his eyes. "I couldn't tell you I'd failed at that, too. The sapphire sat between us, blue and cold. I didn't steal from you because I didn't love you," he said. "I stole from you because I was afraid you'd find out love hadn't been enough." I wanted to say something clean and cinematic. What came out was, "You filed a police report." He nodded. "And an insurance claim." Marlene did most of the forms. I signed. "Did she know the burglary was staged?" "No," then quieter, "not at first." I called Marlene from the kitchen while Dad sat with his hands flat on either side of my mother's ring. I did not put it back in the box. I wanted him to see it. Marlene arrived in 17 minutes, which told me she had been waiting for the other shoe and had worn sensible flats. When she saw the papers, she pressed her fingers to her lips. "I didn't know about Sam," she said before anyone asked. Dad made a sound. She turned on him. "I didn't, Walter." I believed her, not because she looked innocent. Innocence was not a color anyone in that room got to wear. I believed her because her anger arrived too fast to be staged. "You knew about the jewelry?" I asked. "He said the pieces were his to sell, that you and Sam had taken what you wanted after the funeral." She swallowed. I knew the break-in sounded wrong. I told myself grief makes people strange. "Grief does not pick a username," I said. "No," she said, "it doesn't." That was the first useful thing she did. She did not defend the indefensible. The second was harder. I put my phone on speaker and called the insurance adjuster. Paul Hennessy had gone to high school with my mother's younger brother and still began every conversation like he was standing beside a parish pancake breakfast. "Nina," he said warmly, "I was sorry about Anne. How's your dad holding up?" I looked at Dad. His face had gone gray. "He's sitting here with me," I said. "Paul, we need to correct the claim before it goes further." The warmth drained away. "Correct it how?" I did not say fraud first. I said emotional distress. I said confusion around items believed missing. I said several pieces had been located, and the family wanted to withdraw the personal property portion of the claim immediately. Paul let me finish. Then he asked for Dad. Dad stared at the phone as if it were a snake. "Walter," Paul said, "if I keep processing a claim for property that was not stolen, this becomes something neither of us can smooth with a note in the file." Dad closed his eyes. "I understand." "Were the police told the items were stolen?" "Yes." "Then you will amend that report too." For a second, I saw the old reflex in him. Father knows best. Daughter is overreacting. Men handle unpleasant things by waiting for women to stop asking questions. I slid the auction timestamps across the table. He looked at them. The fight left. "I'll amend it," he said. Marlene reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook with a grocery list on the front. Milk, bananas, antacids. Beneath that, in tight handwriting, were auction usernames, shipping labels, and item descriptions. "I wrote them down after the second sale," she said. "I told myself it was for business records." Dad looked at her, as if she had betrayed him. She met his face. "No, Walter, this is what helping looks like now." 3 pieces had already shipped. 2 buyers agreed to returns when Paul's letter and the platform notice described disputed estate property. 1 did not answer. Dad paid that buyer back from the account where he had put the sale proceeds. The rest were in his closet, wrapped in tissue inside an old shoe box labeled Christmas bulbs, which was almost funny if you had no soul left. We went to the police station the next morning. I had imagined satisfaction. I got fluorescent lights, a vending machine humming like it had a medical condition, and my father holding a pen over a supplemental statement for so long the officer finally said, not unkindly, "Sir, you do have to write something." He wrote, "Items reported stolen were later determined to have been moved by me." It was not enough. I leaned close. "No." His hand trembled. He added, "I gave inaccurate information during a period of emotional distress. I no longer wish to pursue a burglary claim." The officer read it, looked from Dad to me to Marlene, and knew more than he said. Real authority is often quiet because it doesn't need to perform. Paul canceled the payout. The insurance company kept the file open for review and sent Dad a letter full of words like material misrepresentation and future coverage limitations. The franchise application died when Dad withdrew the equity documentation. The bank did not magically forgive the mess, because banks are not in the miracle business, but a nonprofit credit counselor found a way to consolidate the medical balances without pretending a 71-year-old man should launch an appraisal franchise from the ruins of his family. The reverse mortgage specialist came to Dad's kitchen with a canvas briefcase and a voice like dry toast. Dad hated him immediately, which I took as a sign the man might be useful. "I don't want strangers knowing my business," Dad snapped. I set the folder on the table. "Not all the papers, just enough." "Then cooperate with the people trying to keep your business from becoming a case number." He looked at me with real hurt. "You do that to me." "I'm doing this instead of that." There it was, the leverage. Ugly, necessary, and nothing like justice in the movies. I did not feel powerful. I felt like I had been handed my father's keys because he had driven through our front porch. Sam did not come to those meetings. I told her the basics. The claim was canceled. The report amended. Her account would be repaid through the mortgage restructuring before any other family expense. Grandma's pieces were back in my safe, except for one pair of earrings still tangled in platform dispute hell, which sounded like a minor Greek punishment, but with worse customer service. She listened from the other end of the phone and said, "Okay. Do you want to talk to him?" "No." "Do you want me to stop asking?" "For now, yes." So I stopped asking. That was the part I had not prepared receipts for, the silence after the emergency. Sam stayed at Maya's another week, then came home and moved through the house politely, like a guest with excellent manners and a broken heart. She filled out college housing forms at the kitchen island where I had laid out evidence. When Dad called, she let it go to voicemail. I had saved the money, or most of it. I had saved the jewelry, or most of it. I had even saved Dad from the version of accountability that would have flattened him completely. I had not saved the grandfather, who used to sneak Sam extra, whipped cream when my mother pretended not to see. Months passed. Dad sold old tools, canceled the franchise, signed every disclosure the counselor put in front of him, and complained about all of it with enough stamina that I began to think he might survive shame out of pure irritation. His house changed mostly by absence. No new catalog binders, no velvet trays in my mother's armoire, no Marlene talking about retirement hobbies. She stayed, but she stopped softening his edges for him. When he interrupted the counselor, she said, "Let her finish, Walter," and he did. Sam came with me once, near spring break, and waited in the car. "Do you want me to tell him you're here?" I asked. She looked at the house, then at her phone. "No, but you can tell him I'm not gone forever." It was more mercy than he deserved and less than he wanted. Most honest things are. That afternoon, I sat at Dad's kitchen table while he made tea. He had started using my mother's old kettle again, the one shaped like a squat silver pear. For years, he claimed it whistled too loudly. Now he seemed to need the warning. "There's something for you," he said. On the table was a small velvet box. My stomach tightened. "Dad." "It's not hers," he said quickly. "I know that." I opened it anyway. Inside was a sapphire ring. Not my mother's. The stone was smaller, the setting simpler, the gold newer and too bright. For one ridiculous second, I was offended on behalf of the original, as if jewelry had seniority rights. Then I turned it over. On the underside of the setting, near the left prong, was a tiny, deliberate notch. My throat closed. "I had an old photo," he said. "Blurry one from your cousin's wedding. The jeweler thought I was crazy." He was working with evidence. Dad gave a small, wrecked laugh. "It won't be your mother's," he said, "but it should be yours." I held the ring in my palm and felt the weight of what could be repaired and what could only be marked. For a long time, neither of us said anything. The kettle began to whistle, too loud, exactly as advertised. Dad moved to take it off the stove, and I closed my fingers around the new ring, chip and all.